morning, Suncoast. Singing on back, singing on back. Hey! Singing on back. I call you maker. You give life an eternal spark. I call you healer. You can mend any broken heart. I call you faithful Father. You finish everything you start. My soul was made to respond. I know you by 1,000 names, and you deserve every single one. You've given me a million ways to be amazed at what you've done. I am lost in wonder at all you do. I know you by 1,000 names, and I'll sing them back. sticks, whispers, and walk away. My past mistakes beckoning, but you're here with me. You're here with me. You call me out on this time, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart. You call me out on this time, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart. And Tom says, give up, you're not strong. And high hopes rob me, and they take my song. The mercy guides me, beckoning. Still you're here with me, and you're here with me. You call me out on this time, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart. You call me out on this time, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart. You call me to the valley, I'm home. You call me to the mountains, I'm home. And Jesus, I will trust you. I know that wherever you call me, that's home. You call me to the wastelands, I'm home. You call me to the promise, I'm home. Jesus, I will trust you. I know that wherever you call me, that's home. I'm You call me out on this tightrope, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart. You call me out on this tightrope, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart. Call me out on this tightrope, never thought I'd go walking this far, but somehow it feels like my home, walking this tightrope back to your heart.
Good morning, Suncoast. How's everyone doing? All right. Oh, man. I've never been on a tightrope before. I don't think I have enough balance for that. And I don't see myself doing that in the future. But this week I had a little bit of a tightrope experience. At work, we were putting a new piece of equipment in, and our normal electrician was out of town. And my boss was getting hand surgery done for carpal tunnel, so he wasn't there. And I'm starting to smell something getting a little hot. And I'm like, this isn't good. I don't know enough about electric work, but I need to get this machine going. And I called, Henley here. He's an electrician. I'm like, hey, what do you think? I'm smelling something burning. And he's like, yeah, that's not good. And I had two different thoughts in my mind. Okay, I'm just not gonna do anything about this because I'm too scared, or I talk to these professionals, they walk me through it, and I do it. But that little tremble that you get in your hand when you're like, okay, I'm turning the breaker on, please don't blow up. And I remember having that thought constantly, but having these resources that know more than I do to comfort me and say, hey, it's okay. checklist, 1, 2, 3, 4, you could do this. Push me further than I ever thought I would go in this situation. Machine got turned on, and we were going. The machine was cutting parts, and I was, at the end of the day, was just relieved. But I never thought I'd even get to that point where I overcome an obstacle that I didn't think I was able to do. And this morning, as I'm singing that song and hearing the band play it, I'm thinking, yeah, I go through so many times where I'm on this tightrope of insecurity or fear or whatever, and I freeze and I don't do anything. This morning, if you're in that place anywhere in your life where you're like, I'm scared, so I'm just not going to do anything, I want to encourage you to do something. You have people who love you around you, to be backboards. You have this community. You have amazing resources just inside these 4 walls alone to say, hey, I got this going in my life, and I'm tired of being stuck. I want to move forward with something. I want to encourage you to keep moving on, keep pushing, keep growing, because there's so much beauty in that. You guys ready to sing a couple more songs? Let's go.
I close my eyes to see my King in majesty. majesty, my faith will stand. I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand, it will be my guide. What fear may fail and fear surrounds me, but you never fail, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are Would you sing this with me? Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith would be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours, and you are mine.
A heart of storm clouds raging deep within. The Prince of Peace came bursting through the wind. The violent sky held it found yours, shining like the sun, striding through my fear. The Prince of Peace met me there. You heard my prayer. Hope like the sunlight piercing through the dark. The Prince of Peace came and broke into my heart. The violent cross, the empty grave, and in your light I found grace. Tearing through the night, riding on the storm, staring down the fire. My eyes found yours, shining like the sun, striding through my fear. The Prince of Peace met me there. And you're always there. And you hear my prayer. Suncoast, I want you to make this your prayer. Your love surrounds me. Let's sing this out together. Your love surrounds me when my thoughts are waging war. When night screams terror, your voice will roar. Come death or shadow, God, I know your light will lead me there. With fear. When fear comes knocking, may you be my God. When day breeds trouble, then you hold my heart. Come storm or battle, God, I know your peace will meet me there. And again. So be still, my heart, and know that you are God. No my soul will ever know that you are God, and you heard my prayer. Let's give him one more shout of praise this morning, Suncoast. Thank y'all so much for being here this morning. You may be seated.
Someone one day, I think it was my mother, he said, well, if you're going to be a Christian, you got to do this, this, this. And I said, well, Mom, you know I love you. She goes, yeah. I said, but do you really think you have the right to define Christianity for the world? Because you just cut out 60% of the people in the world who call themselves Christian with your viewpoint.
Right.
And she says, well, I don't want to do that. I said, I know. So let's be a little softer.
Yeah.
And we try to soft pedal some hardline issues. But we try to help people know they're loved here, they're accepted here. It's a non-toxic community, and it truly is making a difference in our world.
And I think that's the most humble position one could take, is to say, we're not completely sure.
Yeah.
And I think there's wisdom in that.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. I'm Larry Baucom, the lead pastor of Suncoast, and thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure. Lots of good things are happening in Life Church, and so some of the things I'll tell you about this week, there's a leadership training for youth tonight, and tomorrow begins youth camp. You know, at some point in the history of my life, you go to youth camp, travel to somewhere, have youth camp, and I've been all over the state of Florida, on the East Coast, center of the state, North Florida, up into the Carolinas, Tennessee, for youth camp. But the best youth camp I've ever seen is the one that operates on this campus, because most churches don't have the opportunity to have their own campus. So they start here tomorrow. They have water, and honestly, I have 3 grandkids that are in the youth department going through this. It's my joy. So if you come to this campus during the week, this week, I suggest you don't. You know, just for your own safety. So if you do, watch who are walking across the parking lots, whatever, but it should be a wild and crazy time. And I like to see them on Friday, because on Friday when they go home, they are worn out, slam out. And I see the youth leaders and I go, my goodness, sure I'm glad that's not my job, aren't you? So God bless everyone. So today we're in the Practical Prescription series. This is the last of 9. So number 9 of 9. Next week it's going to be Father's Day, and we're going to do something a little different next week and then launch another series after that. But one of the premises upon this teaching is our lives should always be growing. And we're looking at lesson 9 for becoming more. If you want to see these, you can watch them online. Go to Suncoast Community Church on YouTube, and you can see all this practical prescription stuff. But the first one, just a quick recap. The first week we talked about the practical prescription, dig it up. There's something in your life, gifts, abilities, talents that you have, and you've forgotten them, dig them up. Let them live. I mean, I think talents need to be utilized. The second week on the practical prescription, we talked about those things that can be toxic in your life. And if something is toxic, like a tooth, pull the tooth. Do not let the toxic things in your life contaminate you. Healthy people reject a toxic lifestyle. The third week, we looked at the concept of play the movie. What does that mean? Really is about, if you don't like the trajectory of your life, guess what? You're in charge of the narrative. Stop it and rewrite the movie of your life. If you don't like the way your life's going, then say, I'm not going down that road, and choose an alternative path. Play the movie. In week 4, we talked about doing something. That it's not just going to happen, but we need to be a little more proactive about what we do. We need to do something about our reflection. We talked about that. Week number 5, we talked about acting like an ant. What does that mean? You know, wanting my life to be perfect and wanting it all at once is not the growth process. What do? The next step. You do something, do the next right thing. We think it's small increments. And then lesson 6, we talked about this, which was a lot of fun, called hate well. What does that mean? Well, if we are to hate evil, we are to hate unjust circumstances, but not people. I mean, I think that's important. Unjust circumstances, not people. Week 7, don't play fair. And Dr. Doucet talked to us about this, and many of these he did, but don't play fair. If you want your life to live completely fair, particularly in relationships, I'll do my half, you do your half. But you said this to me, so I need to say this back to you. If you want to play this game, if you play fair, you're never going to win. As a matter of fact, that's a perfect formula for destroying relationships, is trying to make everything fair. You need to be more than fair. And fair, playing fair eliminates grace and kindness and doing something more. And then last week, be humble. We talked about failure is not final. And there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. We talked about that. But the opposite of humility is not confidence. The opposite of humility is arrogance. And those are different things. And you can see that. But today, we're talking about this last topic. Ready? Upset the right people. What does that mean? Well, let's look at James and see what it says in this wonderful epistle. Listen to what James says. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all that they do. So today I want to give you 3 observations, 3 truths for you, and I think you can fill in the blank if you want. They're in your notes that are in your hand. Here's the first one. The right thing to do is not determined by how others will respond. So, if any of you lacks wisdom, ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. In the course of my life, it's really, if it's determined by how others will respond to my actions, I'm never going to find stability. I'm going to be up and down about everything. Let me give you an example. In 1998, I had an encounter in my life, and I'm going to talk about this more in July when we celebrate 25 years of Suncoast. 25 years, amazing. But in 1998, I had a God encounter that shaped my life. I resigned pastoring. I stepped out of the pastoral ministry forever in my mind. Then at a quiet time, a few months later, God whispered to my heart. He wanted me to surrender my heart to him, but also to do something about it. I was in the process of buying into a business and becoming a partner in a company. But God whispered to me during that time, I will be your partner. Will you partner with me to start a church, unlike others? Can you imagine my response? I was praying for wisdom, praying for peace. The God of the universe whispers my name. He wants to partner with me. The words overwhelmed are not enough. I was overwhelmed and more, but I said I will do my best. The question became where? Where do we start this church? Well, the first place, and Becky and I remember talking to her about it, and she was just like, she's ready. She's ready for anything. When I stepped out of ministry, she was behind me. When I decided to go back in, she was behind me. I will tell you this, guys, if your spouse is behind you, your partner is for you and supporting you, there's nothing you can't do. I just think the sky's the limit. So she was my rock during that time. For the first person who voiced their opinion of where I should start a church was a businessman. And he said, really, I think you should start it in Monticello, Florida, where we lived, in Tallahassee. And this guy who talked, his name is Omer Miller. He's passed away now, but his son is a very good friend of mine. And a PhD in economics, taught at Florida State. I'd been consulting with him about the business and basically said, look, I want you to know, I think you should start the church here in Monticello. Monticello is like Podunk City. It's the capital of Jefferson County, only has 3,000 people in the whole city. It is only 17,000 in the whole county. Very small county, very deep south. He said, I am a member of the First Presbyterian Church in Monticello, and I want you to start it here in this church. I said, well, tell me about it. He said, I am the senior member there. In other words, he's the boss. And he said, there is no one in this church younger than their 70s. The church is on a death course. It's going to die out. You want to do something young and vivacious. We want you to know we don't want you to be in our church when we're there. But we'll give you the building. We'll pay you a salary because we think this is a missionary thing we want to do to send you out in the community to really bring people in. And I tell you, I was impressed. I was flattered that they wanted me to start a church there. I was impressed that this older congregation said, it's not for us, we don't want to change, but it doesn't mean we don't think the world needs something like you have. Sound pretty good, doesn't it? So that was I'll think about it. The second option was to go to Tallahassee, a community of a couple 100,000 people. Made sense. We lived in Tallahassee. Our kids went to school there. We had a nice home. We made some good friends. We really loved that area. I could start the church and still have my job that I worked at and help with a salary. That was option 2 we had to consider. A third option was I got a call from a friend of mine in Yulee, Florida. Anybody know where Yulee, Florida is? It's up north of Jacksonville. That's where they put the red in neck in Yulee, right up there. I mean, it is an interesting place. I went there, and the guy was there, and his name was Zolly. He was a long friend of mine, a long-term friend. He was about 80 years old. He had left the denomination that I'd been in, and he started this church. It was about 150 people, had land, had a building, and he said, I want to retire. I want to give you the church. I said, well, I'm flattered. Let me pray about that too. The fourth option was Sarasota. We lived in Sarasota. Becky grew up here. This is a home for us. We had pastored here for a few years. We had friends in the community, and the two couples particularly said, well, if you decide to come back, we'd help you plant a church. And they wanted us to move back to Sarasota. So after days of prayerful consideration, you know what our decision is, right? We didn't go to Tallahassee. We didn't go to Monticello. We didn't go to Yulee. We decided to move to Sarasota, Florida. And we'd call this church plant Suncoast Community Church. When we arrived back in town, I was trying to buy a house. We lived at my in-laws. It's really tough when you have 3 kids moving in with your in-laws. Not a good thing, but they were very kind about it while our house was waiting to close. And I called my denominational leader because I was still in this particular denomination. And I called him. He lived over on the other coast. And I said his name. I said, hey, Byron, I'm decided to move back. I'm going to plant a church in somewhere in the east side of I-75 is my goal, either Manatee or Sarasota. I'm thinking Sarasota. And he said, I don't think that's a good idea. I said, why? He said, well, because we're thinking about planting a church in that area. I said, Byron, the church has been talking about that for over 10 years. They've never done anything. And I said, besides, Byron, I want you to be very clear. This is a courtesy call from me to you to let you know what I'm doing. So you won't have to hear it through the background. I said, I don't expect any help from the denomination. I will not contact any church member or church for any support or help. This is something I think can be done by ourselves. And he said, well, I'm not really for that. And then that moment I asked him this question. I said, well, with due respect, as a friend, one person says start in Monticello, another says start in Tallahassee, another says move to Yulee, and another person says don't start in Sarasota. But you know what my heart says? Sarasota. Who should I listen to? I asked him the question, who should I listen to? He said, didn't answer. He said, we should not support this. And I said, okay, thanks for the call, and I let him go. Listen very carefully. Since I was a teenager, I've always tried to listen to what they call the still small voice in your heart. I've made it my life's goal to follow that voice where it takes me. To follow it, not just to listen to it, not just to surrender to it, but also accept the challenge of what it means. That still small voice here, now I sort of hear it here. Kind of like, I hate to use this, kind of like texting in my head or a conversation I'm having in my head with myself. And the point is, when God whispers to you, when you feel that impression strongly in your life, someone said, do you hear this audible voice through a megaphone saying, no, Larry, you need to go to church? No, it was never that way. It wasn't. Maybe you have that, I don't. I just had this deep sense of this is the right thing to do and I will do it. Here's the point. Sometimes we need to upset the right people. We cannot live our lives trying to please everyone. I mean, if you did, then the part of me would be here in Tallahassee, Monticello. I mean, how could you live that? I call it a windshield wiper type thing. How can you make decisions like that? So 25 years ago, we decided to move back, and we've grown from a small congregation. Really, we started with about 17, then 40. And there have been days we've had over 2,000 here, but still our community is way over 2,000. Those people who call us church home, we'd like for them to quit watching on the internet and come in. But here's the thing. But we are so glad you're watching on the internet. So no guilt. Just stay doing what you're doing. James 1:6 says this, but when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave on the sea. See, the man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord because he's double-minded. If you're going to listen to all the different voices, this is what will happen, and you'll never listen to what's true within. In this moment, this is my challenge to you. We need to find the voice in our life and follow it. We cannot please everyone all the time. People can want different things from us, not just pastors. I mean, it's all sorts of people. We cannot please them all, especially when they're conflicting things, which leads to the second truth today. When we must be honest with someone, be careful not to harm them. Proverbs 27 says, wounds from a friend can be trusted. Honesty in relationships is critical for growth, but there's a difference between hurt and harm. Hurt is part of the normal part of life. Our feelings can get hurt when we don't get our way. Our feelings can get hurt when we have to swallow our pride. Our feelings can get hurt when we get rejected. I remember saying something to my granddaughter, London. She's now 7, but when she was about 3 years old. You know, it's Lord Ricardo's little smallest, my youngest grandchild. They're at my house, they're playing around, and all of a sudden, she goes and she's in the other area crying. And she's just crying her heart out. Just, you know, those little girls, they just, oh, it's everything. And she just sobbing. And finally, Grandma Becky goes and see what's going on. She goes, what's the matter? What's the matter? She'd just been in with me. I said, what's the matter? And out of her tears, she says, Pop, that's my name, said, Pop said no. I don't remember what I said no about. I mean, but sometimes it hurt her feelings, but it didn't harm her. You see the difference? Our feelings are hurt when we fail, when we lose our job. Our feelings are hurt when someone we love corrects us. Life is not free from hurt, but hurt does not mean harm. Harm occurs when people are injured by destructive things. You know, I think gossip, it's not just hurt, it does harm. Often we make decisions that others do not like. In some ways it hurts them but does not harm them. The story of a young couple that I know wanted to get married. And they decided they were going to get married. And the parents of the groom were not on board for the wedding. They said, we just don't think this is right, blah, blah, blah. And the son and the bride said, look, I'm old enough to get married. This is the girl I'm going to marry. Whether you show up or not is up to you. And they said, we're not going to the wedding. They felt so strongly about trying to control what he did. Where did the hurt come from? Two different angles. The hurt came from the decision of the bride and groom, the decision to get married against their parental wishes, and the other hurt came from the decision not to go to the wedding for their own kids. Decisions were made on both accounts and hurt occurred. Later, both came around and reconciliation was made. I mean, hurt was there, but reconciliation keeps it from growing deeper. When I make a decision, others can be hurt or harmed. The hurt can be minimized or can be made worse. Hurt without care, hurt without follow-up, hurt without value can turn into harm. I need to be careful. We all need to be careful not to damage others. Does that mean you should never say no? Sometimes you're going to have to say no. And maybe, you know, you don't realize it and it offends someone, but you don't have to harm them. When I have harmed someone, I need to work toward reconciliation or resolve or lessen the damage. I talked to someone recently said, well, you know, I really want to get this back together, but I just don't know how my family will receive me. Reconciliation is always a good thing. So I don't want to say I'm sorry, then don't say you're sorry. Say, you know, this is difficult. I think I made some mistakes. Well, maybe I didn't, but work through it. I am sorry that the relationship is not together. I am sorry that we're not healed. I'm sorry that there's frustration on both sides. I want reconciliation. When I do a sermon like this, I'm going to land this on one practical prescription and you have in your hands. But I go through and write down all the practical prescriptions that I think this teaching could affect. So here's some things that you didn't have written down, but these are some other things. And if we're going to go on, I'd probably use some of these. Prescription number 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 would go something like this. I will practice reconciliation. Get up every day and try that one. Or here's a simpler way to say it. I will mend fences today because I surely have broken down some. Or I will go above and beyond. How about this one? I will do no harm today. I will make things right today. Forgiveness is forgiving. And my favorite, the last one, original, I will be charming, not harming. That sound pretty good? Try that for a while. Which leads to the third truth today. It's this. My decision to live for God determines many other decisions. I mean, James says it, You know, he's double-minded in all that he does, unstable in every way. See, I want to live for God, but you know what my also understanding is? I think you want to do what's right and live for God. But let's be honest, you and I will never please everyone. But I don't want to cause harm. I don't want to cause pain in someone's life. Anybody around remember something that came around about 20 years ago? It's called the prayer of Jabez. Just curious. You ever heard the prayer of Jabez? Oh, it came around, and here's the prayer. Oh, Lord, that you would bless me indeed. And this is the other prayer. And enlarge my territory. In other words, that I may acquire more wealth, more possessions. Enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. And there's this whole prayer of Jabez. It came out kind of in the health wealth thing. Claim this prayer, grab everything you can, and God wants to bless you in many ways. But I went through and read this in the original language. Jabez in Hebrew means pain. What the guy's saying is, oh Lord, help me not to live up to my name. Pretty good, isn't it? My name is pain in the neck or lower. I mean, help me not to be that to other people. I don't want to be pain to everybody. Help me to be better than the pain that's in this world. I don't want to cause pain in others' lives. That's a good prayer. See, you and I, there's one voice we need to hear, and it's the one who directs our lives. When I make a decision, and I made a decision to follow the teachings of Christ, there will always be someone who questions that decision because it's uncomfortable for them. Back to the Sarasota thing, I ran into one of the ladies in town who was part of a good friend of mine. And she was part of the church that I'd pastored before. And she basically said, I do not think you should come back to Sarasota. And I said, you know I love you. And she goes, yeah, I do. I said, do you think I should follow your advice or follow my heart? She said, didn't take her long. She said, well, I think you should follow your heart. You know, if you say, Pastor, should I follow your advice or follow my heart? I think you need to follow your heart. You say, you mean my ego, self-driven, full of me, step on everybody's heart? No, that's not the heart I'm talking about. I'm talking about the heart that is in touch with the God of the universe that's within you. Get in touch with that and see what the answer is. There's always someone who wants to call the shots in your life. You know what we call them? Controlling people. If we try to live our lives to appease controlling people, we'll make bigger mistakes. So how does a controlling person look? Ready? Pay attention. Controlling. That's how they look. And how should we respond? We should not let someone else control the course of our action. How do we deal with controlling people? We transform them into frustrated people. How do we do that? By not allowing them to control us. When they're not controlling you, they become frustrated. What do we do with frustrated people? We leave them alone. To be a growing Christ followers, there are times where we will not please everyone. Fair enough? You can speak the truth, live out godly values, choose to follow God's way, and you're still going to disappoint someone. Here's the key. Do not count your critics, but weigh them. I don't mean put them on the scales. I mean, figure out if they're controlling people. Categorize them. Are these people for me? Don't avoid upsetting people. Just make sure you're upsetting the right people. If kind, loving, honest, responsible, godly people are getting upset with me, I need to take a look at my choices. But if controlling, irresponsible, manipulative, self-serving people are getting upset with me, it might be just the right sign that I'm living the life I should. Want to hear a truth about life? If you follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, there will be some times that you upset the right people. So, in your hand, you have a prescription. Pull it out. Out of all those I read earlier, this is the one that wins today. This is the one I think if you follow this, it's the best prescription I can give you. It's about don't let others control me, the prescription. Listen to your heart. Let me pray for you. Father, in a moment just like this, what words could better describe our posture today? That we listen to our heart because our heart's connected to you. We follow the right path because it's the right thing to do. Forgive us for the times that we've harmed others. Forgive us for the times that we've been arrogant with following you. Forgive us. In a moment like this, we humbly say, we want to be the best version of ourselves we can, and that comes by listening to you as we listen to our heart. May that be so today, we pray. In Christ's name, amen. Would you stand, please? I want to tell you a story in closing. Mary, got it? Listen to your heart. When my children and I were, when my children were small, I mean, Laura was maybe 6 or 8, or maybe 10. Stacy was 8. I was at a drive-through bank on Fruitville Road. I pulled through without counting my cash. You know how you make a deposit, you want some cash back. Back in those days, everything now was mobile deposit. But I pulled through, put it in there. She gave me back, took the deposit, and put the cash back in the envelope. I didn't count the cash. I pulled down around the store corner and pulled into a parking lot where I was going to talk to them about where we're going to go eat or what we're going to do. And I pulled out the money as I'm talking to the girls, and instead of getting $60 back, they gave me $260 back. Whoo! I thought to myself, let's see what happens. I said, wow, girls, look at this. I've got, instead of $60, I got $260 back. Where are we going to go shopping? What are we going to do? This is $200 of free money. and Laura said, without meaning a beat, right. You're not fooling us. We know you're going to take the money back. And Stacy was nodding her head, and Laura said, let's go. How did they know that? They'd always seen us live by, we do what is right. They trusted their father to do what is right. Now, if my kids could trust me, how much more should you and I trust our Heavenly Father? He loves you today, and so do I. God bless. Thanks for coming.